Hi, my name is Matt Burke. I'm the Education Director for the Center for Congregations, and with me today is Jason Moore of Midnight Oil Productions. How are you, Jason?
Doing good, Matt. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. So Jason is going to be doing an event for us called Creative Worship, Designing Memorable Worship Experiences, and that's going to be on Wednesday, September 21st in Evansville from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and note that is Central Time. Jason is an award-winning digital artist whose passions include designing worship, production, acting, and teaching. And he leads seminars across North America on creating cutting-edge worship. So he definitely knows what he's talking about this subject. So Jason, why is it so critical for congregations to think about intentionality when they're designing their worship experiences?
I think that's a great question, Matt, and it's one that we will definitely hit, I think, over the course of that day. We live in a time that's where people don't just automatically show up anymore. It seemed like there was a time in our history where there was a weekly ritual of attending congregations, going to worship. And, as you look at the numbers, people are less and less engaged. And I think part of that may be that while our core values are strong and our message is strong, we haven't really changed the cultural expression of those core values very much. And so I think we have to be creative in the way that we represent what we're sharing in the Sunday or Saturday or Friday worship experience. And so I really believe that with intentionality, we can draw people into a life-transforming message, but we have to be intentional, like I said, about how we communicate that good news. And so that's really what we're going to spend the day exploring is how do you create worship that engages our very visual, our very creative culture. We can't just think it's going to automatically happen anymore, I think. I think we have to do a little bit of work, and creative worship really, I think, is required in many ways to reach this culture that we live in now.
All right. And so it sounds like you're saying that, the intentionality and the creativity is not, you're not focusing on a specific style such as, like contemporary or modern forms of worship, but just encouraging and giving the kind of tools and resources to folks that they can look at their own context and their own, liturgical practices and find ways to be creative and intentional within those boundaries to make it more meaningful. And as you said, even help people to retain even more of the information or the richness of the experience.
Absolutely. You will see examples throughout the day of both traditional kind of settings and non-traditional settings. It's really going to be about bringing creativity to whatever style worship that you do. The methodologies that I'm going to teach throughout the day will work in either setting. And I also want to say that this seminar really is designed to be experienced as a team. So one whole session is about collaborative worship design, where musicians and pastors and liturgical arts people, pretty much any lay people will come together, and I'll teach a process for how you look at the scripture and you build from the ground up something that is holistic. Again, whether you sing hymns and play an organ or you have a full band or whatever is irrelevant to the creativity that will happen. And one of the biggest things that I will hit, and I think really one of the most important things that will be the takeaway, is that we're going to create worship, or we're going to learn to create worship that is more about what happens on Monday than it is about what happens over the weekend. Because so much of what we do is we plan for a service. What songs are we going to sing? What sermon or homily are we going to hear? Whatever that might look like, what liturgy is going to look like. We sometimes forget about what's the next step. And so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how can we come out of this thing with a Monday focus, where on Monday I now am reflecting on and putting into practice what I experienced over the course of whatever day worship occurs in your congregation. So that's what really gets me fired up.
Well, speaking of next steps, what are some things that attendees can hope to take away from this in terms of being able to implement some of these things into their worship experience?
Sure. Well, in the first session, we're going to talk about 4 different methodologies that will increase participation, will increase takeaway, kind of that retaining idea. So right off the bat, session 1, you're going to have 4 great ideas to take home that any church of any means, any size, any congregation of any size can implement. In the second session, I've got 7 principles for design, and so we're going to, whether you are a graphic artist or not, I'm going to give a primer on the language of image, and so you'll have 7 takeaways there. In the third session, we're going to spend the entire session talking about collaborative worship design, and I don't even remember the number of things I have that you're going to take, but that is chock full of who should be on your team, how your team should meet, how you underpin every series or sermon that you put together, and so on. And then in the last session, I talk about 5 phases for creativity, from starting with nothing to having a full-blown system. So we'll talk a little bit about technology. We're going to cover copyright. We're going to talk about next steps, like how do you, once you've raised the bar, how do you keep it raised? What do you do about naysayers in your congregation who aren't sure they want all this creative stuff? We're going to hit all of that over the course of the day. So you'll have a 13-page handbook that will be chock full of notes when you go home, with really practical applications.
So it sounds like some very practical pieces that you'll be able to implement in potentially even in the following week in your congregation. So make sure to think about bringing a team. As Jason mentioned, this can be a very collaborative endeavor. And once again, this is going to be on Wednesday, September 21st in Evansville from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. It costs us $30 per person, or if you bring a team of 3 or more, it'll be $25 per person. And you have a continental breakfast, great lunch, book to take with you, Jason's book or Jason's handout full of notes. And hopefully we can help you launch into more creative ideas about your worship experiences. So thanks so much, Jason, for being with us, and we're very much looking forward to seeing you in September.
I can't wait. It can't get here fast enough. It's going to be a great time.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yep.